My name is David Rockney. Hello, I'm a financial journalist and your moderator for today's Fordham Global Foresight call on a brave new tripartite world. I'm delighted to be joined by Tina Fordham, founder and geopolitical strategist, Martin Brush, co-founder and head of financial risk, and today's team of distinguished experts. What developments of the first month of the second Trump term do you regard as the most significant?
I think that the sheer volume of changes, the departure with policy orthodoxy in so many ways, the withdrawal from the U.S. Global role through USAID and other agencies will also have a very significant effect on the sense of the U.S. as a reliable partner, whether at the government, at the state level, or for business. I think that there will be quite a toll from all of these changes.
Two key questions there. What is America up to? And then how should we respond? There's no doubt everybody is scratching their heads, trying to understand where Trump is heading, what shapes his foreign policy. We are seeing a change of attitude by the Trump administration in a relationship, not just with Europe, but the rest of the world. It's far more contractual.
On tariffs, look, there are some discussions going on, and rightly so, between DG Trade and their US trade counterparts, and they've happened at senior level to see what can be done to address some of the issues around trade imbalances, trade deficits, and see whether there are some ways through that would mitigate the gloom.
We certainly live in interesting times, and there's much to debate on the German election. Now, let me underscore that in terms of what policy-wise we could expect. And of course, the biggest focus for markets and maybe in the debate more broadly in the economic area has been on fiscal policy, and we should, by all accounts, expect some degree of fiscal loosening.
I think the biggest problem that we have at the present moment is that we have a lack of robustness in corporate valuation. And what do I mean by that? Very simply, that discounted cash flow analysis is something that is bread and butter for both most banks and for others. But I also think that if we look at it, it's fundamentally weak. It does not reflect complexity of operation, and it doesn't reflect the probability and or complexity of exit. So I think the DCF needs a bit of a brush up.
Ibrahim has already talked about public opinion in Germany and fragmentation. We have a much more complex set of subgroups when it comes to populist parties, mainstream parties, and public opinion. And fundamentally, what that means is more difficulty in governing, more difficulty in finding a center, more difficulty in consensus, which is what government is really about.
We've been conditioned to think about the uncertainties that the US government is creating in the rest of the world. But what is really changing fast is that there are new downside risks emerging for the US economy. Some of the recent data have been underwhelming to possibly concerning. And Tina mentioned consumer sentiment in the US has started to ebb.
The expectation that most CEOs of companies will have is that we are going to have to navigate some really extraordinary times. And I think the point I made earlier on about corporate simplification, I think is going to be really, really relevant.
If you look at the history of empire over centuries, there is a remarkable continuity, and there's more than one actor. We called this discussion today a tripartite world that would like to restore borders to some point in history that they believe was more advantageous.